Hey everybody, Stew Smith here with another tactical fitness report, and I'm proud to say we have Mark Christiani here, who is a former Army Ranger, and he is now a strength and conditioning coach, master's degree, correct,
Yes, sir.
with and some great experiences coaching athletes in college as well as Army active duty and reservists. And there's a new program that we're going to go really in depth in today. It's called the H2F program, stands for Holistic Health and Fitness, that the Army has rolled out, about 4 years ago?
Yep,
It rolled out?
2021 kind of went wide.
Yeah. Yeah, about 4 years ago. And so anyway, I can't wait to hear about this. But first, Mark, welcome. And second, tell us a little bit about yourself and this journey that you went from an Army brat to joining the Army yourself and then becoming a coach, because that's a not an uncommon tradition. Or there are many people in the military want to go into the fitness industry when they get out, and I'm just curious to hear your story.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Thanks for having me. Um, yeah, my story, like you said, fairly common. I had a dad who was in the army. We moved all the time. He retired as a major in the mid 90s, so kind of brought up in that army lifestyle. Um, I myself went to school for kinesiology, got my undergrad degree. Originally started working in worksite wellness for a few years, uh, doing a lot of smoking cessation programs, like group exercise classes, that kind of stuff. Uh, Enjoyed
Was
that.
Now, real quick, was that a corporate organization, like a industrial athlete, so to speak, or?
So it was actually through MetLife Insurance Company. It was
Oh, okay.
for their employees to lower insurance
Okay.
costs.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
the insurance companies, everything the Army's looking for, they have it figured out. They know how to reduce cost, man.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, worked for them for a little while, and kind of down the street was the Army recruiter. And always wanted to join the Army. Didn't want to be one of those people that said he always wanted to join. Wanted to be one of those people that did join. So went in the Army recruiter's office. Was lucky enough to be able to join the Army. Pretty physically fit at the time, working in fitness. Uh, didn't have any like crazy stuff on my medical record that precluded me. So I was lucky enough to be able to join. Took a few steps through the Army, went to SFAS originally with an 18 X-ray contract. That didn't work out, but I was able to go to Ranger Regiment and go to RASP and be assigned to 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, where we had the Thor 3 program, kind of a precursor to H2F. Uh, Strength and conditioning coaches, physical therapists really helped us out and got to see that whole aspect of it from the athlete or the tactical athlete perspective. Worked with those guys a little bit, and on my way out, wanted to do what they did. Got the advice from the coaches there. Really solid advice from them. Go get a master's degree and then work in college sports until you have the experience to come back and work tactical side. That's exactly what I did to Georgia
Now, real
Southern
quick,
University.
you're making that sound a lot easier than it's done, right? Because just to go get a master's degree in exercise science, sports medicine is one, not particularly easy, right? You're talking years, right? What would it take, a year and a half, two maybe, to do that?
Took me 2 years, and I was also working as a full-time coach or like coach at Savannah State while I was doing that. So master's degree and coaching at the same time.
That's good. Two for one deal. That's the best way to make it work.
Yeah,
And then you spent more time being a strength coach for various collegiate athletes, which it's nice to have different specialties that you have to focus on in that world. Do you think that prepared you well for the next chapter?
yeah, absolutely. I would say a lot of coaches do football, and
Hmm.
they only know football. And football's a great sport. It's good to learn on. You have a lot of different aspects. I was lucky enough to do like men and women's sports, track and field, basketball, baseball, volleyball was a really good one for
Nice.
me. My first team was honestly cheerleading, which I guess a lot of strength coaches I've talked to, their first team is cheerleading because you can't really mess them up that bad. So they kind of give you that as your starter test, and you have to get some buy-in from them.
Yes, I've worked with cheerleaders. They're
Yeah.
they're tough. They're a tough group. Tough group.
you learn a lot working with all the different sports. You learn different aspects of fitness, but most of all, you learn how to deal with different personalities. And that paid off huge in the military when I was able to
Absolutely.
transition back to the H2F program. Uh, Huge being able to work with all the different personalities you see in the military. Uh, my transition to the H2F program was my first foray into government contracting. So, like most coaches, we know college world, we know independent world, we don't know government contracting world. So when I heard H2F was coming out, I applied to all these jobs thinking like, man, I'll just get one of these jobs. Didn't realize the contract hadn't been awarded yet. I interviewed with like 20 some different companies for this job, got conditional offer letters. After that, realized I needed to spend some time learning about government contracting. If I was going to be a government contractor, I needed to sit down. I needed to learn what I was getting into, who I was actually working for, who was signing my paycheck, what rights I had, and what the expectations were of me. And I would encourage any coach that does work on the military side on a contract to do the same. Like, understand the lingo, because then you can take advantage of the good aspects of it, and then you personally won't get taken advantage of by contract companies, which maybe out there to make profit first and provide health and wellness to the soldiers second.
Yeah.
Not saying that all of them do that. Most of them really good companies. They want to provide services, but there are some larger companies out there that might prioritize their like personal profit over like the well-being of their employees.
Yeah, another segment of that too is understanding there's usually a really big company that gets the contract, and then you have all these subcontractors that you're now dealing with as well that actually run the coaching part of that. Do you have like your top five companies that are usually in the ballpark for these contracts, with your experience? And because I always try when people ask me, hey, how do I become a military coach? And then first I say, well, I'm not a military coach. I train kids for the military. But if you want to be hired by the military, you got to find one of these contractors. And it seems like they change names every couple of years. I don't know why they do that. So it's very difficult. So I'm glad you're on just to answer that question for people who are coaches that are considering this route.
Yeah, absolutely. So, number one, on the special operations side, they have a different contract. So, special operations, active
Right.
army and reserves, as well as Navy, Marines, Air Force, all have different contracts. So, on your special operations side, the contracts are held by KBR Wiley.
Mm.
Uh, KBR Careers is where you can go to look for their jobs. Those jobs require 5 years of experience, preferably in like high level collegiate athletics, working with Olympic athletes, special operations sort of experience. A little bit higher standard because you're working with your Green Berets, you're working with your Rangers, those kind of guys. Navy SEALs, they got the Navy SEAL contract out there, the
Mm-hmm.
Coronado and some other places. So KBR is a great place to work. I have some friends that work there, only hear good things. Um, on the reserve side, right now, it's a small contract. It's held by O2X Human Performance.
Oh
That's who
yeah,
for. They are a fantastic company. I know you probably
I've
met.
had Adam on a couple of times. Yep.
Great company, man. Love working for them. Whole reason I left the large H2F contract with the large contract company was to come work for these guys. They do police, they do firefighters, and
Yep.
they have a little bit into the National Guard, Air Force, Air National Guard, and the Army Reserves. The active duty Army H2F contract was held by a company called Gap Solutions with a bunch of subcontractors, like you said, LMR Tech, North South Group, some of the others.
Mhm.
That
Right.
contract got rebid and won by a company called Serco North America. Serco is a large government contracting agency based out of England. They have billions and billions of dollars of government contracts. They subcontracted to a few other people. I'm not super familiar with all their subcontractors. The one that I am familiar with is called Higher Echelon. They're out in the
Yep.
northwest. Another or Higher Echelon, I've heard really good things. Serco's a large company. They oversee everything. So they're your big company. On the Air Force side, you've got LMR Tech, you've got Reef. Um, they've been around for a while doing human performance. You also have KBR again on the Air Force side. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I missed. I know
No,
there's
that's great. That's just a great place to start because I think once you start with one, you kind of see the process, how it works, and then you can reapply to all the different other ones, especially if you're waiting on a contract to, to rebid. And depending on who gets the contract, you like you did, you had some preliminary offers before they got the contract.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, if you're applying to one of the jobs, look in the job description for contingent upon award.
Yeah.
That means the job is not real yet. They will have the job for real if they get awarded the contract. That's what I learned the first time around. I think it's like, how are all these companies all applying the same job? It's like, well, it's all a contingent upon award. So
Right.
look for that in the job description. It'll be in there somewhere, usually in small print at the bottom. But that means you're applying for the future if they win the contract.
All right. So let's go into your experience with Thor. Exactly. How did that work? Because you were active duty at the time, and you kind of like dipped your toe into the water and said, like, I want to do this. Explain what Thor is, real quick.
So Thor 3 was a program a lot like holistic health and fitness. You had strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers, physical therapists embedded with special operations. Um, for us, it was battalions. First bat, second bat, and third bat each had their own human performance team. We had two strength and conditioning coaches, two physical therapists, one military, one civilian, I believe an athletic trainer, and then there was a dietitian for the regiment.
Oh, nice.
My experience with them was it was great. Um, my first experience with them was prepping for Ranger School. Physically, I was
Okay.
pretty prepared, but I wanted to be like I'm one of those like hyper do it like 110% kind of people.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
I wanted to get with the strength coaches to get an optimized exercise program coming from that background to prepare for Ranger School.
Well, that's
I was
cool
getting
because
all
Thor stands for, just so the listeners are aware, Thor 3 stands for Tactical Human Optimization, Rapid Rehab, and Reconditioning, which is real interesting because you usually don't see those words often in a strength and conditioning program, but like any other activity, there's injuries, and you got
yes.
to get them ready again to serve. Right? How was that experience? You know, when you going through that Thor program.
It was really good. Got to see how knowledgeable these strength coaches are, and did my Ranger School prep program. Went to Ranger School, had no problem passing the physical
Nice.
portions. Like just went like shot on through it. Um, and then when I got back as part of the reconditioning portion, went back to the strength coaches and was like, "Hey man, I just finished Ranger School. I feel like I'm going to die. What
Yeah,
should I do?" And they gave
yeah,
me
it
a nice
beats you up a little. Yeah,
program. Yeah, a very body weight program, a lot of stretching, a lot of mobility, a lot of body weight exercises. I remember what made me come back to them is I got back and I'm like, cool, time to bench press. Haven't bench pressed in like
right.
a few months. Let's go. And I put 130, 135 on the bar and it hit my chest and I was like, oh God, this is so heavy. What is happening?
It's
So,
amazing how much muscle you lose at that school. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard on you, man. It really is hard on you. And let me tell you, don't do it by yourself because you can rebuild after that, wind up hurting yourself or changing your body type altogether if you're not careful. And yeah, so it's real interesting to hear that Thor, rehab rehabilitation section in their name because just even if you weren't injured going through Ranger School, you need some reconditioning.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Like I
that's
came out
awesome.
of it pretty healthy. I just lost a bunch of weight and was
Yeah.
not loving life. And then we had the physical therapist as well. I didn't have a ton of experience with the physical therapist. Thankfully, didn't have a lot of injuries. Had a minor like back thing. Saw the physical therapist. Got out at home exercise program. Did it. Back
Nice.
felt better. No issues. Uh, But strength coaches, they were great. They cared about the soldiers. They wanted us to do well. They had programs for companies if you wanted it, for squads, platoons. They had it made up for everybody. They do individualized programs. A lot of the people that went to take the long walk, like Delta Selection,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would see those guys and get prepared because they had nice programs for them as well.
That's
They
awesome.
one-on-one attention. If you're coming back from injury, physical therapists would hand you off to the strength and conditioning coach, kind of help you out, get back. I only had good experiences with Thor 3. I really liked it. I thought it was a well run, at least at first
Yeah.
bat. That was really my experience. Well run program. Coach Justin was the coach that I worked with primarily when I was there. He's a great dude.
That's awesome.
So
That's the
confident.
way it should run. That's ideally what you just described is how things should run.
Yeah.
Like physical therapists and communication with the coaches and the rehab program and rebuilding and getting people out. So that's fun. I'm glad to hear that works so well. Um, what about this? What was the next evolution for you after all of that?
So after all of that, doing everything, I got hired on to the H2F program as a lead strength and conditioning coach for the 44th Med Brigade at Fort Liberty.
Gotcha.
So
As
again,
a contractor through O2X.
as a contractor, at the time I was through Gap Solutions.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I
Okay.
worked for Gap Solutions at the time. Um, it was interesting because the contract company told us we were getting like there were going to be gyms waiting. Everyone knew all this stuff about H2F. The soldiers were super excited, and we had all this equipment. We are going to run a college strength and conditioning program for soldiers. We showed up day one on the ground, and there was nothing there. There was like some gym in a boxes. Most people didn't know who we were or what we did.
Oh,
So that's kind of the disconnect. Those contract companies, they're a staffing company. Their job is to
yeah,
provide the people. They don't
yeah,
necessarily know what the people are getting into or what they even do. So that was my like wake up call to be like, all right, cool. Like I work for these guys, but I really work for the program director in the 44th Med Brigade, and I got to spend my time working with them
right.
um, and help them as much as possible. Like my job is to help them, not
Yeah.
necessarily like work for my staffing company who
Oh, sure.
do
Yeah,
the PWS, the job description and everything. And I just stay within those right and left limits, do my job.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, H2F. So I started day one, H2F when it went wide, September 20th, 2021, there at Fort Liberty. We got on the ground. We realized we had no stuff. We realized no one knew who we were. So step one was start building relationships. Like
Okay, good.
we had a really good program director who kind of prepped people. They knew we were coming. They just didn't know what we did or who we were. So like a few days we spent getting to know everybody. By day three, myself and the four other coaches that started, we had PT sessions rolling. Like we were running PT sessions. We were helping people out. We definitely overestimated the level of fitness that we were
Oh,
going to see.
sure.
They were coming back from COVID. A lot of people were, taking a lot of time off. We brought them out there for a workout of like 400s and 800s, like a ascending ladder of 400s and 800s. And by the time we got like halfway through and people were throwing up on the side, and we're like, all right, cool. Like we're done. Like, and then we talked to some of the sergeant majors that we had and some of the commanders. And we're like, all right, we got to start. Like we're starting post-COVID programming. We're
There
just
you
trying to
go.
get back in shape.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Once again, anytime you're doing group PT or group training at all, it is so hard because you got differing levels of fitness. Um, and if you're really fit, you're probably not getting worked enough. And if you're kind of a beginner, you're probably puking on the side, like it happens. And that's a tough one to figure out. How did you guys wind up, making those changes after you discovered, what you discovered?
So first thing we did was we went back to the drawing board and we're like, all right, cool. Like we gotta figure out like reconditioning. We gotta recondition everyone to get back to a baseline.
Right.
And the way we would do it was there'd usually two options. We got a lot of the company commanders to agree to not just like slam this, everyone has to do the same thing, but like, hey, like if we're running, let's say we got a 30-minute run. Some people are only going to do a 20-minute run. Like if you can't complete 2 miles without stopping, you're going to run for 20 minutes, but your
Sure.
goal is to not stop for those 20 minutes. Then the rest of you are going to run 30 minutes. Come on back, and then we're going to spend some time learning body position, a lot of body weight exercises, some isometric exercises. And then the equipment we did have, we put a big emphasis on learning how to use the equipment properly, like
Smart.
learning how to do a kettlebell swing, learning how to do a barbell deadlift, maybe a barbell bench press, overhead press, bent over row, like learning how to use that equipment, not just like pick it up, move it around, set it back down. And then in doing that learning and teaching, you're also conditioning at the same time. We're learning kettlebell swings. You're going to do 50, 60 kettlebell swings, but they're going to be in small little chunks while we're getting the movement pattern down. And
Perfect.
then people get reconditioned, and we started to, be able to run with it a little bit more. All of a sudden, like, we got people coming back and they're like, I'm in good shape. I'm liking this. And then we were able to push forward a little bit harder from there.
Yeah, that's really smart because I can't tell you, how many times I've had to deal with um, remedial programs, right? So, like for instance, at the Naval Academy, there are people who fail the swim test. There are people who fail the PT test, and it's not many, but it adds up. When you got a 4,000 person group, it can add up to 50 to 100 people that are in that world, and most of them, like you just said, they're smart people, right? They just haven't learned how to train efficiently and properly. And education, I think you're can't go wrong with explaining how to do all of this, because they'll pick it up like that, and then they start implementing it with the training system, and they realize, this is why I wasn't doing so well. I had to learn how to do it. So yeah, kudos. Yeah, that seems smart. So tell me about the name. I know you weren't a part of the name of the H2F. Let's just explain the word holistic for everybody.
Yeah. So the Army, smart. The Army was this time very smart on this one. Holistic health and fitness. The idea is there's 5 pillars of holistic health and fitness. There's the spiritual pillar, which is run by primarily the chaplains, and the
Hmm.
Army's always had that. They're now just
Yep.
kind of putting it in together.
Implementing it. Yeah.
Yep, there's this nutrition pillar. You got your dining facilities, but soldiers are always going to eat. So nutrition is a pillar there. Sleep. So the sleep pillar is part of that holistic health and fitness. Army has plenty of studies out there that say that they don't sleep very well. Navy has plenty of studies. Air Force has plenty of
Yeah.
studies. None of these guys sleep very well. So sleep became a priority. Physical, the physical side of everything. So you got your physical training, but also your injury prevention falls under the physical side.
Nice.
And then mental performance or mental preparedness. Uh, this goes, yes, there's the behavioral health side that all the military branches have to help soldiers that are struggling. But until recently, they hadn't had the performance optimization mental side of things. Now,
Nice.
cognitive sports performance therapists in there, they can do one-on-one counseling, they can do small group. Uh, they're thinking ways to try to get people to goal set properly. Think, how am I reframing my mindset from I want to do the minimum to what is the maximum? Like, how do I get to that? So that's a huge aspect. So those are the 5 pillars that the Army decided was their holistic picture of health and fitness. Uh, it's focusing on more than just physical.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, you got a little pentagon
Yeah.
in the logo there, and it has all 5 of those topics there. That's really smart. Like you said, that's really smart. Have you ever tried playing around with mental and physical mixed together?
Yeah, yeah. So
There's a lot of ways to do it. Something I like to do often is when somebody's in the middle of a set of something, whether they're running or they're doing pull-ups or push-ups or something, I always like to ask questions. Right in the middle. You're not keeping track of reps. I don't care about the reps, but can you engage that thinking part of the brain in the middle of this set? And I have found that to be very interesting, and for a couple of reasons. Is that it's kind of like the same reasons where, they run around, doing some kind of drill before they stop and shoot on the at the range. You have to learn how to shoot tired. You have to learn how to think while your heart rate's going up. And it's real easy to, like, little stupid questions. I even had flashcards of like multiplication tables, and I put it in front of people, 9 times 7. And it took them like a second or two to like put it all together and like, oh, okay, I got it now. So yeah, you almost have to learn how to turn on that thinking part of the brain. Is that some of the concept here?
Yeah, there's definitely that is incorporated in um, those. I mean, just very similar to the one you did. I worked with the mental performance team. We'd show people a picture, then they do some physical activities, and then they ask questions like how many boxes of cereal were in the picture, what color were the lights, those kind of things, and then they go
Yeah,
to the next station and do another task. Um, we had a great mental performance team when I was at 44th Med. They did a really good job with incorporating that stuff into the physical domain.
that's cool.
Exactly what you talked about. Hey man, I'm going to ask you some questions while we're lifting or while we're running or something. Can you engage the thinky part of your brain? Because like
Yeah,
when you're out on mission, when something's happening, you have one person talking in this ear, another person talking in this ear. You've got to be able to engage
yeah,
with those individuals and follow instructions to keep everyone safe. You can't just be so tired that you're like on autopilot.
yeah, yeah. One of the things I've always just coached was, when you get asked that question and you're in the middle of the huffing and puffing, just take a deep breath,
Yep,
then engage, because it turns the thinking brain back on really quickly. If you can do that, but that's a skill you got to practice and you got to learn it, and otherwise you're just out there reacting versus thinking. And yeah, no, that's cool, man. And plus, the mental and the sleep and the spiritual, as well as the nutrition. I mean, all of it is part of recovery
yep,
and stress mitigation. I mean, you can't have stress mitigation without those 5 pillars.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because
And
because I have found that, the like I focus on phase 1 and phase 2 of tactical fitness. We're just preparing people to go do a job or get through a school. You are dealing with the actual job of people, and then you have some people that are going to another school that might have to prepare specifically for that next selection or whatever, but they're also dealing with family stress, job stress, deployment stress, lack of sleeping stress. So stress mitigation, tell me, you know how big of a deal that is in your world.
oh, it's huge. It is
Yeah,
massive. Um, I think that was when we started with H2F, there were a lot of there were some of us that were prior service through different service branches. But we had that kind of mindset of like you got to take into account the family, you got to take into account what they're doing off their job, you got to take into account what they're doing for their job. For some of the coaches that came directly from collegiate setting, never having experienced the military or tactical setting, they took some time to grasp that
sure.
hey, staff sergeant so and so that you're working with at home might have just moved halfway across the country. His family is coming in 3 weeks. His wife is getting everything set up. He's got 3 kids that are coming. He's away from them right now. He's staying in he's a geo bachelor or something, and he's dealing with the family stress, but then he's also dealing with the hey, I just started a new job stress. If you're out there expecting that person to perform at the optimal level, probably not, but you can focus on recovery, maintaining what they do have, and helping build some new skills or build some stress management skills for that
Mhm.
individual, or just help them out. Like
Sure.
I remember soldiers, I had a group of soldiers that went to the field and it was hot, like it was real hot. And I brought out some cold Gatorades to them, like a few coolers of cold Gatorade. And they were like, yeah, man, that was stress management right there because they had to like breathe. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's not in our job description. It's not in our like PWS or primary work statement to do that. But as coaches, like this, I think most good coaches know this. you gotta help the athletes out and meet the athletes where they are. You prioritize their needs sometimes, and that might not be only their like workout needs, their nutrition needs, but those mental performance needs, and you can make a lot of headway with them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something I always do because we do early morning workouts here, and a lot of times people are coming in fasted because they just didn't have time to eat breakfast. And you do an hour, hour and a half worth of moving, you're going to be bonking pretty quickly. If you haven't had a banana or something to like boost up your blood sugar. So I always make it a point uh, to like have some fruit laying around, or honey stingers, just to grab some quick carbs because, I can't tell you how many people just basically look diabetic, right? It's just like no blood sugar in their body and just falling apart, puking everywhere, but then, yeah, just a little bit of a blood sugar pump and a cold liquid pump can change the attitude of everybody in the room for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Like we used to do college football. We had our little
Yeah.
training table out there with fruit. It was like fruit, pretzels, chips, like some candy and stuff. If anyone looked like they were going down because it was in Georgia, it's 105
Oh,
outside. We're like, come on, grab some water, grab a banana, like you feeling better. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, I am. All right, go back to practice.
yeah, that Southern Georgia heat, man. I grew up in Southern Georgia, North Florida, and yeah, that was brutal time. So what? Tell me this. You mentioned you were working with reservists primarily in this. I know that's a whole different animal than the active duty. With the H2F, how has the H2F structure managed to uh, assist with the reserve side of the uh, military? Because it seems like it is pretty flexible to handle both active duty and reservists the way it's set up. I'm just wondering what structures you had to make that happen.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So definitely different, right?
Yeah.
I think General Harder, who's the general in charge of the reserves, has said like I need my H2F to also focus on the other 28 days, and when
Mm,
we're not at battle assembly, when we're not training. So we O2X human performance side have a phone application that the soldiers can use. It's got healthy recipes on there. It's got workout programs on there. They can contact me directly through that. It's got
nice.
mental stuff on there, like breathing exercises, bedtime routines, wake up routines. So initially, my plan was like I got out first 90 days, hit all the units that I had in my area. It's a little rough because they do battle assembly on the same weekend, so I'm like driving all over Florida. And
Yeah.
but I'm getting them the app in their hands, so that they can see it. They can start making some good decisions. They can get in contact with me. I'm getting my contact information out to them, and then from there, I do a lot of individualized programming. On the active side, it was more group programming for everybody, and on this side, soldiers need, like you said, they don't all need different programs. They just need kind of a similar program modified for their needs. So I've done, oh man, it's about 6 months into this job, and I've done over 300 individual programs for people. A
Damn.
lot of individual programs. Commands like to utilize my services myself when they have soldiers that fail height and weight or they fail ACFT. Part of your counseling, come see me. Boom, we're going to get you on an exercise program and we're going to get you some nutrition help. At least then they can say, like, we gave you the help. Like,
Right.
if you don't want to follow it, just like on the active side, like the grown adults, if you tell me, like, I don't want to do any of this, I'm not going to listen to anything you say. I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm going to make sure you have it in your hand when you leave talking to me so that if you decide to, or if something else goes wrong and your command comes to me and is like, hey, man, like, what's up with this guy? I'm like, hey, I gave him a program. I check in with him once a week. He doesn't hit me back. And he told me he didn't want to like participate. Uh, but so we got our phone app. I do a lot of individual programs, and then I go to battle assemblies with the soldiers. So I have a built-in monthly touch point, which is nice.
Well, yeah, it is good.
And it's pretty consistent monthly touch points with units around. So I go hit battle assembly. One of my favorite things to do during battle assembly, if I don't have like a PT session to run or like teach a class, we do a lot of education too. I'll just sit up and I'll like make a huge mess on a table in the drill hall of a bunch of papers, and then like soldiers come up to me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? What do you got there?" And I'm like, "Hey, come over here. Like, let's talk about some stuff." But, do a lot of education as well.
Oh,
Teach
smart.
classes, all sorts of stuff on classes. And then my big initiative now that I've been here for 6 months is kind of getting the reservists to reframe physical training during battle assembly as instructional education time. So instead of we're going to go for a 5 mile run and we're just going to break people off once every 28 days, it's hey, here's an exercise program you can do for a whole month. We're going to spend 2 days going over all the exercises. We're going to do all the movements, make sure everyone's good on all those movements. The H2FIs, which are formerly master fitness trainers, they changed the name to
Oh,
health fitness
okay.
integrator.
Yep.
um, Teaching them to kind of teach the soldiers how to effectively work out. So that way you leave battle assembly and you're like, yeah, man, I know what I'm going to do for the next 28 days until I come back. And I have a baseline education now on how to work out. Because one of the challenges I heard when I first got here was I like to work out, I want to be in shape. I don't have any idea what to do when I get to the gym. There's so many machines, there's so much stuff, there's so many
Yeah.
people. Getting
Yeah.
people a plan in their hand, boom, they know what to do. Getting on the phone app, boom, they know what to do. Same with nutrition. I don't know what to do. All right, cool. Let's go through the app. Let's pick out some healthy recipes that you like. Great. You're going to make these one of these a day for the next 30 days. You come back to me, and I've had soldiers like, hey, I do the healthy recipe for lunch every day. And now I started doing them for dinner. And they're like, I lost, 5, 10 pounds in a month. I had another
Nice.
soldier that was like, I lost 25 pounds in just about 6 months just by picking healthy recipes from the app for dinner. So
Smart.
like kind of building that idea that like you can't we have resources for you to make healthy choices and we want to help, but it's on the reserve side, it's much more wellness based.
That's
Where's the
really impressive. I love your I guess your testimonials, right? Whenever you share something like guys are losing this weight, as a coach, if you don't mind me asking, this is could be related to H2F, could be something that really struck you. But when you look back as your time as a coach, what is that one time where you just say, I made the right decision becoming a coach because this outcome was worth every bit of it?
oh man, I my go-to one for this, like it's the same one every time anyone asks me this question.
Good. I love it.
Been working for H2F about a year and a half when this happened. This soldier that was told like, "Hey, we're gonna med board you out of the army. Like, there's no reason for you to be here. You're injured all the time." The soldier went and had a back surgery, and I was like, "All right, cool." Like, didn't want to leave the army. This soldier did not want to leave the army, and I was like, "Well, let's work on it." Right? Like
Yeah.
we worked together in the past. I was like, "Let's work on it." Uh, get through like what the surgeon says for back surgery, like the con leave time and the protocol there, and we start working out and like we're working out hard, like we're pushing it because we got a timeline, right?
Yeah.
We got a few months to figure this out. We're working out, we're working out, we're working out. Get this soldier prepared, and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go take an ACFT, the Army Combat Fitness Test. I have a permanent profile, so I can row instead of run." But she's like, "I'm doing all the other events." We prep for another month. I talk to a battalion commander, and I'm like, and the PA, and I'm like, "Hey, this person's gonna pass. Like you're not gonna med board them if they pass, right?" And they're like, if she passes, we will not med board her. Like she's good to go. I mean, PCS, go to her next duty station. It's great. We go out there, passes her ACFT. Actually, does very well on the ACFT. Uh,
Nice.
Rode a 5K in like 23 minutes or something like that. Uh,
Okay.
like yeah, like path, like
Yeah.
it did well in everything. Was able to do the deadlift above standard, even with that like previous back surgery, sprint drag carry, everything, passed everything, did pretty well. Was able to PCS and is still in the army. Still hear from this person today every once in a while, like about how things are going, but
Nice.
going to be able to retire. I got I got 2 years left until they can retire, but going to be able to retire in the military. Was able to stay in. That was the moment where I was like, "Hey, man, like this is what we're here to do. Like we're here to help people. We're here to get people in
Yeah.
that situation, give them the opportunity they might have not had if someone didn't believe in them."
Yeah. I love that. Those are like such good stories for a coach, because you go home at night and you're like, I'm glad I chose this option. to do this. So what's your, I guess, vision of where this is going? It, now, before I ask this question, is there a National Guard component to this, or is it just the reservists?
I don't do the National Guard at all. The
Okay.
National Guard has been instructed to figure out holistic health and fitness. Every state is doing that differently. Some are
Okay.
reaching out, and some are getting contractors to come in and help. Some are doing like seminars, workshops, those kind of things through O2X or other companies.
Gotcha.
Some have just kind of disregarded because they're the National Guard and they get to do what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder because a lot of times they're integrated with the active duty forces or reserve forces often, especially in the SF world. You
Yeah.
can be a National Guard Green Beret and that block fits perfectly in this deployment package. And I was just wondering how you do that. But if you would just kind of share where you see H2F going in the next 5-10 years.
All right, so there is a rollout plan for H2F, and active Army reserves is still working through some stuff to try to get that figured out. But active Army, it's going to be, I think, about 50% of the active Army in the next 5 years will have H2F teams in their brigade level teams, which will encompass physical therapists, occupational therapists, cognitive sports performance people,
Nice.
strength and conditioning coaches, and athletic trainers, all in one like cohesive team under the roof to get direct access to care to those soldiers. The rest of the Army, there's plans being kicked around. I know the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army had said he wants H2F in the hands of every soldier. It's an Army program. He wants it for every soldier. So that
Nice.
makes a lot of sense. On the reserve side, there are a few different plans being kicked around right now. We're doing the initial like kind of bridge pilot program here to figure out some things that work. We're regionally based right now, so my hub is here in Tampa, Florida, and I have a large region here in Florida that I help out. Uh, there's an alternate plan where each major subordinate command would get a strength coach, athletic trainer, and uh, registered dietitian to work at the major subordinate command across the entire country.
Wow.
It'll be a little taxing for those individuals. We'll see how that plan works out. Um, and the idea will be H2F is going to come to the Army Reserves, and it's going to be a larger program in the Army Reserves. They're just trying to figure out how to fit it into the budget right now and how best to organize it. Like you talked about, it's not the same as active duty. So, how can they scale it for the Army Reserves? Right now,
Right.
personally, I think we're doing great things with the regional strength coaches. There's four of us around the country, one in Charlotte, Nashville, myself here in Tampa, Florida, and one in Columbia, South Carolina. We got our nice little regions. We're reaching thousands of soldiers, getting them set up with exercise programs, getting them set up with nutrition help, sleep interventions, everything you can imagine. We're out there helping these guys as much as we can.
Nice.
So it's growing. The program is growing, and there's going to be a lot of jobs, like contracted strength coach and contracted athletic trainer jobs in the future. There's going to be a lot of jobs.
Nice. Yeah. How many would you say compared to what it is now, percentage wise? Will the jobs have to double, triple,
Over double.
over double?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I think it's
nice.
going to be just under 1,000 strength and conditioning coaches and over double whatever the athletic trainer number right now. So there's going to be a lot of jobs in the end for these positions all over the country at major military bases, working with brigades of all different kinds. Right? It's not just the infantry guys. It's everybody. So there's
Yeah.
infantry, there's tankers, there's medical people. Army realized that support people, in this case, like definitely just as important as the combat arms people, getting this additional help, and they can really cut some insurance costs and save a lot of money by helping by getting it in the hands of everybody.
Yeah, I love this because what you're doing is something I've said since the 90s is we need to treat our tactical professionals like athletes, right? And unfortunately the tactical professionals don't think of themselves as athletes. That's one, but then we need to treat them like athletes. And how do you do that with actual coaches that are there? Like I remember showing up at my SEAL team in 1992, and our gym, we shared it with another SEAL team, and it was probably about the size of, I don't know, my basement here in my house with a bunch of Olympic or no, what do you call it, Nautilus machines,
Okay.
and a couple benches, a squat rack, one maybe for two teams, and there was no program. There was no programming. There was no programmer. It was use the weights if you want them. And oh, by the way, we got 2 hours of PT with the most in fit master chief that's at our SEAL team. That's gonna make us hate our lives for the next 2 hours. Programming the programming. Yeah, it has evolved significantly since post 9/11 primarily, which it should have. I mean, you saw some definitely saw some needs after 20 years of conflicts. So I'm proud to say that this looks like it is like the answer to how we all should think the tactical professional should be trained.
Yeah, man, we just got to get the Navy on board now. We got to get the Navy signed up for this.
Yeah, they have their program too, as I recall, but it has ebbed and flowed, over the last 20 years with once again five different contractors who are
Yeah,
running the program. They got great facilities now. They've updated the facilities to be like, you walk in there and they're like, we're not worthy. It's that nice. But yeah, it's good to see it moving in the right direction. That's all. Yeah,
it is. It is. Like the big thing that I think it's moving to, like eventually moving to, is training more of the soldiers, these H2FIs, H2F integrators, advancing that training to be a little bit farther, so that they can start taking over some of these roles. And you're never going to get a soldier to be an athletic trainer, because the certifications, the licensure, and everything. But a
sure.
strength coach, like we can spend a year of AIT and make a soldier pretty competent at
Oh,
teaching
sure.
programming. Um, I'm a contractor. I love being a contractor. I don't want to be replaced by soldiers, but in the end, our job is to prepare them and get these soldiers ready so that they can start leading and taking on some of these things. So right now, we need to train as many of those H2FIs as possible, and as strength coaches, embrace them and teach them. Like they get a two
Yeah,
week course in person on how to be a strength coach. That's not enough. Spending time with their strength coaches at their brigade, in the reserve, spending time with us, we can extend that education out years and help them really build the skills they need to provide those like strength coach and those services to the service members. As long as they're willing to accept that,
sure.
that like we are here to help with that as well, like to train the trainer stuff, really help train the soldiers so that they can better train each other.
Mm. Well, sounds like it's working.
So far it's going well. Like with all your experience, though, I would love to hear from you, um, some things that you think like we should really focus on. Like you see a lot of soldiers before they join the military. Um, what are you seeing in the younger individuals before they join that needs to be worked on and that needs to be hit on, that we then can kind of extend on their active duty time?
Yeah. Oh, great question. Well, I would say this, as with, there's no one answer to that because everybody comes into this journey with an athletic history, an injury history sometimes, um, and some strengths and weaknesses, right? And to be a tactical athlete, I've always loved the definition is you just have to be good at everything, right? And what does that mean? Right? That means strength, power, speed, agility, endurance, muscle stamina, um, flexibility, mobility, grip. Um, you need to understand the importance of nutrition and sleep for your recovery. And then from there, it's, how quickly you can learn, right? How quickly you can learn new stuff because you're going to get fed this information through a fire hose when you're going through boot camp and advanced training and spec ops selections, and you got to be able to replicate it quickly. So that is what I see that I need to help people with understand before they leave, and get those um, scores up to where they would no longer be considered a weakness, right? They're, for instance, their running pace, but being able to handle some load, with the weights is also uh, an issue. But unfortunately, there's no one answer, because I got endurance athletes who come into this journey and have strength athletes and come into this journey. And both of them, though they have the same outcome at the end, it's a different journey to get them there. One needs to be more in the weight room, one needs to be less in the weight room, right? One needs to be running more, but maybe they can't run too much because it's too much. And we need to do some other non impact cardio for them, right? One needs to realize 70 miles a week is not needed, right? I can drop that in half or more, then I get in the weight room and put on some mass, right? So that is where I deal with, people who ignore weaknesses. So I think by the time they get through the boot camps and the selections, they realized, if they made it through, they realized that, wow, yeah, I had to really gut check that weakness, every single day. I need to make that weakness less of a weakness if I want to continue doing this job, right? Or they're on the other side of that high attrition rate um, selection program, where that weakness was exposed in the first week of their training and they didn't make it through. um, so that is what I try to do with phase 1 and phase 2 of tactical fitness.
Gotcha.
Work on those weaknesses and make them a well-rounded tactical athlete, so when they go into the training, they're going to get beat up, they're going to be hurt, and then you're going to get them at the end of that where they need to be reconditioned altogether. So that's how I would handle new guys that come in, like fresh out of selection. They're all full of piss and vinegar, but they probably need to recondition and say, here's the new standards for being an operator, right? It's not the same thing as that you were doing over here. So there's an educational part, I would say, that needs to be done. And that's one thing I try to do, is teach those 3 phases and explain to them, you're going to find somebody like you at the end of this journey that's going to be your coach. Listen to those coaches, because that is going to what enables you to stay injury free or reduced injuries, have some longevity in this job. Another thing I try to teach them is that you're going to be older longer than you are younger in this profession if you stay, make it a career, right? So that requires some adherence to your recovery and stress mitigation if you want to have any sort of longevity in this journey.
I like it. What is so like leading into that, I guess, phase 4, where you talk about like into retirement and post military life. What are some things you think we could do with those active
Mm,
duty soldiers to kind of prepare them for that?
that's a good point, because I had a podcaster on the other day that wrote a whole program, a book on from warrior to civilian, right? And it's a really neat read. I really enjoyed it, but it was more about the transition out of the military, losing your identity, losing your social structure, your infrastructure around how you get paid, and everything's changing. You're living in a new town, perhaps, with new school districts, and everybody's stressed in your house. So, stress mitigation, number one, I think, is still primary. Um, but then, I've always, if you're doing this post military, whether you're young or old, the mastery of recovery is your answer to optimal performance and longevity. Like, if you can understand sleep, nutrition, flexibility, mobility, and maintenance of all these components of fitness, don't have to be hardcore, just be good at everything. You can still be an asset, still be able to move around, play with your kids and your grandkids. Um, so as with anybody who's transitioning out, I'd recommend a year to 2 years before you really get out to start thinking about that process and what that's going to look like. And I think the beautiful thing about what I see H2F is it is something that you could take into phase 4 retirement and it be completely useful, and the identity that's around it is something that would sustain you throughout your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and beyond, because those 5 pillars are what we all need, no matter what phase you're in or anything. But those 5 pillars are all part of your optimal performance. And if you quit doing that because you no longer need to be optimal, well, you're now messing up your longevity, because all of these same things you're doing here is going to keep the longevity going. So anyway, that's how I see it. Um, I know this is me interviewing you, so I apologize for my long answer,
No, no, no,
but
that was good. I like
but
that.
that's but no, I think it's a fantastic phase 2 and or phase 3 and 4. It's perfect. And of course you have guys that are getting ready for selection. So even though you're in phase 3, you're an operator, you're an active soldier, there is an opportunity for many of them to go back to phase 1, pass a entry level fitness test to qualify for jobs, and then to prepare for that next level selection. So even though you're you know focused on phase 3, there's still some phase 1, phase 2 opportunities for people to engage in, depending on how they want their career to look.
Oh yeah, definitely. That like
Yeah.
absolutely should be trying to go to schools, like advance that career,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
bounce back and forth depending on where
So,
you are to prepare
but
for
the
it.
reason why I gave it those names of the phases, like getting to the training, getting through the training, and now you're an operator, is I just think people confuse the phases too much. Like,
Okay.
I can't tell you how many phase 1 guys are doing some active duty SEAL workout they saw on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't need to do that. Let's focus on all this. That's why you're failing the PST. Let's focus on the PST so you open the door to you for that community, and vice versa. Sometimes guys, you kind of spend a couple of years focusing all this selection prep, and you don't know what to do when you get to be the operator, and you just keep redlining everything and wondering why you're injured all the time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I think we share a lot of the same stories with our folks, because it never changes. No matter how long I've been doing this, I have the same conversations with people. Year after year, it's the same ones. But that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's it's the goal, right? Educate, and it'll never stop. Like we're always going to get the same conversations, but we evolve as coaches. We hear new things, and we are able to help out a little bit more.
Yeah, I love it. So, Mark, it's an honor to have you on here. I appreciate it. You gave me a lot of good information. I think I'm going to try to write a follow up article on you and your O2X and your involvement with H2F and what H2F actually is. So, I appreciate all the information that you shared. And I look forward to having you on. If you have any other need to hop on, I'd love to have you again.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me, Stu. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll definitely link up in the future. There's lots of stuff we could talk about. Strength coaches, whenever they get together, could talk all day.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw like 3 or 4 different shows occurring,
Yeah,
as we went through your journey. So I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do. The Army needs it, the military needs it, and thanks for your service as well.
yeah, man. Thank you, Stu. Thank you very much.
You bet.